What is up, Mets fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Mets'd podcast, the official podcast of the New York Mets. Mark and James in a little different places today. It's Memorial Day weekend. Hopefully you guys are enjoying some hot dogs, hamburgers, some good old beer, whatever it is, whatever your drink of choice is. We had a good Memorial Day. Would have been better if the Mets won. I think we could all agree with that. If the Mets took this series from the Colorado Rockies, really would have made for a phenomenal Memorial Day. But of course, they ended up losing this series, losing the last two games of the series in a little bit of frustrating fashion, I think, to say the least. Of course, me and James are going to talk about it with you guys, as we always do. So make sure you are following us on all our social media at Mets'd, METSDUP, on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. If you're looking for the YouTube version of this podcast, go check out the New York Mets YouTube channel. Subscribe over there. We drop the videos every single time we have a new episode. And listen, if you're listening, that's what's next. If you're listening to us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, drop us a rating, drop us a review, download, and subscribe. It really does help us out. James, let the people know, what have you been up to on Memorial Day weekend besides watching the Mets?
What I've been up to, hung out with some friends, just stayed in the city. I'm at buddy Tyler and Eric's house right now, recording in their wonderful office. They just moved into this place, and they're both massive sports fans, guys we grew up with. And one of them's a Yankee fan, one's a Mets fan. They're having a massive duel in their office because they share an office about how much memorabilia is going to be on each wall for each team, which is very funny. But yeah, we're both recording in different places, and tell people what you're up to.
Yeah, I am currently at shout out to best friend Alex Lopez. I'm at his parents' new house down the shore. Definitely a different vibe in their office. There's like oil paintings and like mirrors. Like I don't think I even own a mirror in my entire house outside the one that's in my bathroom that was there. I don't own a mirror or otherwise.
No, you own a mirror?
No, I have the mirror in the bathroom. That's the only mirror I have. Where am I going to put a mirror? Where do you put mirrors?
I have one like above my dresser in my room.
But did you buy that mirror or did it come with the dresser?
I thrifted it like years ago when we were living in Astoria.
Yeah, you're a thrifty man.
Yeah, but I mean, hey, we're talking about furniture because we've been disappointed once again by an end of season series here for the Mets in a game that something that sounds like a broken record that we said a lot in this show. One of those that you felt like they would have won last year that they couldn't find a way to figure out and like break through for today.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. The offense showed up. Obviously, in Coors, it's an offensive environment. The bats always come alive for every single person that comes through. But the Mets bats were not the reason for this series going the way that it did. The Mets were not able to get pitching. So, I mean, even a late comeback in Game 3, like Tommy Pham hit that triple off the wall. He had a great game in Game 3. The Mets lost that one 11-10. They lost a close one in Game 2. And in Game 1, they smacked around the Rockies. Just need to get better pitching realistically out of the series. It's also tough to kind of gauge what's going on with the pitching too, because when you're in Coors, as we know, everybody gets hit. It doesn't matter if you're the best pitcher in the world or the worst pitcher in the world. You're going to get hit. So it's very, very odd sometimes to be able to break down what happened. But yeah, the pitching definitely let us down.
Yeah, pitching let us down. It lets you down. But again, like you said, you're in Coors. Like it's a difficult place to play. Like I really commend everyone who ever pitches for the Rockies because like making that your home ballpark, you almost have to like relearn baseball in like a small weird way. Like just to give an example of something from this series, and we'll go through everything more in depth. Justin Verlander's curveball had 5 less inches of drop on Saturday night compared to the season-long average.
Yeah, and that's just simply because the air is thinner. It's out in Coors. You've talked about it many of times. You can't really throw a curveball there. It's not a pitch that works. Breaking balls don't have that same snap, that same movement that they have when you're on regular sea level land like the rest of us.
No, yeah, and it's hard. I mean, you guys have seen like the bullpen like this year. Like as of right now, like the 3 relievers with the most innings pitched are David Robertson with 22 and a third, Steven Nagosic with 21 and a third, and Tommy Hunter with 21 exactly. Like when your long men are the 2 relievers who are getting the most work, you can tell the series has been a bit of a slog in terms of pitching, and it was that. Like, and the hard thing is that it started so well on Friday with a much needed 3rd gem in a row for Max Scherzer. He pitched his best game of the season so far with 7 innings, 8 strikeouts, 1 earned, no walks. That now leaves him with 2 earned runs over his last 18 innings, going back 3 starts with 19 strikeouts. He was fantastic. He set an unbelievable tone in what would now wind up being the Mets' only win this series.
Yeah, no, I mean, thank goodness for Max Scherzer pitching the way he did. We desperately needed it, as you said, like knowing what happened the rest of the series. And from the start, like he was pretty money, and which is good because we know Scherzer has kind of been struggling a little bit since the suspension for the sicky stuff that happened all the way back with the Dodgers had been a little bit shaky, but the last few starts have looked really good. So there's an encouraging sign that you need as a Mets fan from the pitching side. Max Scherzer looks to be at least getting closer to back to where he once was and gave us a very, very much needed great performance on the mound.
Yeah, and then, he just looked super in control. Like, not many guys were on base. The Rockies very barely even got guys in the scoring position. His fastball led the way again, had 9 whiffs. Slider was next, and he had 5 different pitches that had multiple whiffs, which was that's kind of seems like to be the way that Max Scherzer is becoming this again like new reinvention of Max Scherzer, where you throw a lot of pitches at you, keep you off balance, do a lot, and he was totally in control, which is a really, really great start from a guy who has thrown a pretty decent amount of innings in Coors Field and seems to really have a plan of attack to do it.
And maybe anecdotal here, but I feel like I saw him hit 94, 95 a couple more times in this start than he had in previous starts too, which is super encouraging, especially from a guy who said, I need to get my velocity back up because that's when I'm at my best. So being able to touch 94, 95 as consistently as Scherzer did in this game, great sign for me as a fan. Like, that makes me go, there he is. There's Max Scherzer.
Yeah, and also great games from the top 2 in our order, Francisco Lindor and Brandon Nimmo. Lindor, the 2-run home run in the first. That was kind of wound up being almost technically all we needed. Another RBI in the 5th, a sac fly late, 4 RBIs. The sac fly late was also a weird play. A lot of Mets fans were a little agitated because the camera really made it look like it was going over the fence. And Jurickson Profar's, inauspicious route to the baseball also made it look like that. He wound up catching it, sliding in from the warning track on the heel of his glove. Bizarre, strange, weird play, but great game for Lindor. His best, I guess, since the Cleveland series. This is his best since the Friday before. He just really get hot on Fridays. And then Brandon Nimmo, we did the estimate about it this week, always has these huge games in Coors Field. He said something like 20 or 30 or 40 people were at the game Friday. Another 100 came on Saturday. And Friday night, he had 2 triples. Second time this year a player has had 2 triples, joining C.J. Abrams. Both times happened in Coors Field. And 3 of the last 4 times a player's had a 2-triple game has been in Coors Field, too.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Third of those going back to 2020, Kyle Tucker in the shortened season.
Look at us picking up these stats without Johnny Stats here. The podcast boys, let me tell you, we don't take any days off. It's Memorial Day. We're out at our own respective barbecues. We show up to record. Johnny Stats, where you at? And I know he won't hear this, so I could say it.
No, of course, Johnny Vanity. John comes for the in-person episodes to get his face on the camera. But now we have to do another another secret word. Make sure John's not going to listen. What's going to be?
Pecan.
Pecan. That'll be pecan. If John tells us pecan this week is a ballpark, we'll know. But also, 24th 2-triple game in Mets history for Brandon Nimmo on Friday night. First to do it since Ahmed Rosario in 2018. And this is the craziest stat.
Where was it? Was it in Coors?
No, it wasn't in Coors. That one, I believe, was in Philadelphia Friday night where the Mets lost big and he had a massive game.
Okay, yeah, I think I know which game you're talking about.
Jose Reyes had 8 2-triple games in his Mets career.
That's so many.
That's a ridiculous amount of times to have done something like that. Something's also just I feel like less in the modern games, triples, maybe just less guys who are really fast and have a lot of power who hit more often. But I thought that was just mind-blowing that happened. But he also walked 3 times, scored 3 runs, just attacked by those 2 at the top of the order. Bullpen got tight late to close it. This was a good game on Friday night.
Yeah, no, just a straight up clean, easy win from the start. We got David Robertson into the game as well. Brooks Raley got a little bit into some trouble early. Got the 2 guys on to lead off the inning with a couple walks, but then Ottavino came in, closed the door. Like you said, 5-2 win. I wish there was more good to talk about. That game was just very straightforward. There is not much in depth to go about there besides Lindor and Scherzer and Nimmo really having those good games for us. Game 2 now, which happened on Saturday, a little bit more to talk about. We mentioned it earlier that Verlander just wasn't really sharp in this one, and part of it probably has to do with being in Coors. But the Mets, man, they really, really rallied back in this one. You got to tip the cap to the offense again. They showed up big time, put up 7, including coming back from a 6-0 deficit going into the 4th inning. They scored a run, then they put 5 up in the 6th, 1 up in the 7th, tied the game back up, or even took the lead at that point. But the bullpen just couldn't shut it down, and unfortunately it was your guy Jeff Brigham too.
I know it was. I mean, the Brigham thing, it's kind of funny because now, for better or worse, for the rest of the way here, and I think it's definitely going to be for better, my name has become synonymous with Jeff Brigham's. Every single time he comes in a game, I'm tagged multiple times on Twitter. And now, of course, when he gives up some runs, I'm tagged 15, 20 times on Twitter. I get the barrage of mentions, which is always a fun time. And you're like, oh, what? Oh, okay. But he just, and we've talked about this before in the show, it's not specific to Brigham. The pitch, the sweeper, which is his signature premier pitch, the one that is the frisbees that come out of his hand that make right-handed hitters spin. It's just never going to be as good against lefties because, just speaking, logically for a second, if you're a hitter and a pitch is breaking towards you, you're going to see it much better than the one breaking away from you. You have a much better chance to make contact with it because you have more room for error here and you just see it better. And there's a great article from last September by Ben Clemens of Fangraphs. He's a really good writer. He's been with Fangraphs a little while about kind of the cost-benefit analysis of sweepers, the differences between sweepers and sliders. He can explain it much better than I. And kind of about Ben Clemens also had an interesting situation happen this weekend where he wrote a really good article about Nolan Gorman's breakout like a week and a half ago. And then David Adler wrote kind of a similar one. He used the same player comp, which I thought was kind of interesting. But shout out Ben Clemens, he does a lot of good work. And the big point here was that the sweepers give up worse contact against opposite-handedness than basically any other pitch splits in baseball. Like the slider is of course it's going to be a lot worse, like for lefties versus righties, as a pitch that moves similarly to a sweeper, where it's more horizontal than vertical. Curves and changeups, the splits aren't as vast, but sliders and sweepers are more of a comp, and sweepers are significantly worse on contact compared to sliders, and even just compared to other pitches in general. The sweepers so far this season against opposite-handedness, hitters are slugging .299 against them.
ISO 299.
ISO 299. You're right. Take that back. So opposite-handedness, left-handed batters against right-handed pitchers have a 299 ISO against sweepers. Against all pitches in the entire league, mushed together, is 226. That's a very, very, very big difference. That's also against a 240 ISO for right-handers on contact with the sweeper. It's a vast difference, and that just kind of happened. He just hung a sweeper after a long at-bat to Ryan McMahon, and Ryan McMahon loves to have good series against the Mets.
Especially in Coors.
Oh, my God, especially in Coors. It's ridiculous. And also, that same at-bat, though, he did get screwed on a cutter top of the zone, which I've been talking about. It was a pitch that he's been trying to bring on against lefties, bring them to, like, get them out better, and it was basically right down the middle, and the ump called it the ball.
Dude, even Gary on the broadcast goes, that's a ball, I guess. Like, I don't know how they miss it. Umpiring's been horrible. I'm calling out the umpires. I do it like 3 or 4 times a year. This is my episode. Umpires have been horrible. We got to clean it up. Either that or the pitch tracking has been completely broken. And I tend to believe that the guys who are making a judgment call are probably messing it up rather than like the statistical, analytical data system that is working on screen. But yeah, definitely got screwed by that call. And like you said, it's just a little unfortunate with the left-handed hitter. Just kind of drops into the sweet spot. Like where you put it as a righty pitcher is on like that lower outer half against righties, and that's what makes that pitch so good and induces so much weak contact. But with a lefty, it's like the sweet spot. You ask a left-handed hitter, where do you want to pitch? Normally they say low and in, so the pitch just doesn't really vibe well for lefties, like you said. And it's a shame because the Mets really did put up a great comeback. We had Pete Alonso hit that big home run, his 20th of the season. The dude's an absolute beast. I mean, talk about one of the better hitters in baseball. Pete Alonso's name needs to be in that conversation for sure. Then another name that might be coming into the conversation is one of the better hitters in baseball right now. El Troll, man. Francisco Alvarez. I feel like it's probably maybe even getting annoying to a point of how much we talk about this guy and how much we gas him up. But it's not even a gas up. The guy is just simply incredible. Here's some stats for him in the month of May. 21 for 68. That's a 309 average with 7 homers, 17 RBIs. And I don't know, James, you ever heard of a 1087 OPS? How's that sound to you?
It's insane. Also, after Sunday, he hit his 5th home run in 8 games.
It's crazy.
It's obscene what he's doing right now. He has his full season OPS up to 885, and that was from in the 500s after his first 3 weeks in the majors. He's hitting 270 just from batting average. Today, finally, is the first time he struck out going back, how many games? Oh, Saturday was the first time he struck out since May 16th.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, so that was the beginning of the Tampa Bay series. That was the first time he struck out Saturday. He struck out 2 more times today, of course. But we're getting to a point now where it's like it's become very obvious to every single person how good he is. We saw him move up to second in the lineup on Sunday.
It was amazing. And God,
yeah, the fantasy baseball people are really getting into this too, because now the conversation is like, how many catchers would you actually have for the rest of the season in Francisco Alvarez? And he's suddenly put himself in the elite tier of like Will Smith, Salvador Perez, like Adley Rutschman, like Sean Murphy when he's hot, I guess. Like he's a great Mutu. Like that's the tier of catchers now. Francisco Alvarez is legitimately like not being facetious, not being homers, not being biased. He's very much inside that tier.
If you don't think he is, that's probably because you have a bias against the Mets, honestly. Like truthfully, it's you saying like I hate the Mets because the guy hits the ball hard, he plays great defense, he doesn't swing and miss, he gets on base. There really isn't anything that he doesn't do well. I'll say the dude's just an all-around stud.
No, and he was a part of the Kid Barrage on Saturday night. There was that big rally in the 6th inning where all 3 of them did have a hit, culminating in the Alvarez home run. Vientos had 2 hits. Alvarez had another hit as well. And he got thrown out, of course, but he's still a big knock. He still likes to have his fun back there. Like he's still a 21-year-old kid. If he's just hitting the absolute like crap out of the ball on like a regular basis, it is interesting now that all these kids are up and we are getting huge contributions from Alvarez, from Brett Baty. Vientos is playing here and there. He's getting some good swings and still having a little bit of those rookie struggles. And it still just always comes back to the pitching. It keeps coming back to the pitching this year. And it was just Sunday afternoon was just such another harsh example of it, where the Mets give up 2 runs to start, and then they put up a huge 6-spot. Feels like, wow, we're really the good times are still moving. We're getting runs and runs and runs. Then you come out for the 4th inning, and Tyler McGill just can't get out of an inning again, gives up a couple 2-out hits, can't put guys away. Once again, the situation where the breaking balls just weren't really having what they had to be. Talks about how great the slider was as like a forward part of his repertoire last start. He only threw 8 of them. Of course, we're in Coors Field. Huge reason for that on Sunday. Also only 10 curveballs. Lost 6 inches of drop on average with that curveball today compared to his other starts this season. 2 inches of drop on that slider, as we just started talking about him having more depth on that pitch recently. Tried to throw a lot more changeups. Only got 1 whiff. The fastball got hit, but he still didn't allow a ball in play of more than 102 miles an hour off the bat. Like, just for frame of reference, Tommy Pham did that 3 times himself today. And Tyler McGill didn't even allow one of those. So, like, it was another thing where it's like you just can't get that last strike, and that ground ball just goes into the wrong spot, and that bloop falls right in front of somebody. And I'm not going to, like, really just diminish, like, the Rockies' offensive effort, because they did get 10 hits off Tyler McGill.
Yeah.
And, like, there were still plenty of hard hit balls, but it's just, like, there's always that one little just thing, that one little spot, that one little inning, where it's like, if you can get through this, kind of like how we felt with Senga on Wednesday night, where you got through that inning, got to Seiya Suzuki out. Like, if McGill could have gotten out of that 4th inning, allowing 1 or 2 runs instead of the big barrage of 4, maybe. And then Steven Nagosic comes in the next inning and just got Ryan McMahon, Charlie Blackmon, like Randall Grichuk. These guys really got to him.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so tough because, like, even for a guy like McGill, like, I think we've been saying he's like trying to find that, like, that out pitch, right? And it seems like maybe that slider or that curveball could be those pitches, and then you go to Coors and those pitches are less effective. So it's going to be even less of an out pitch than it has been. Guy like Steven Nagosic, pretty straight fastball. The slider is like it's fine, right? It's solid. It has some good shape. But for a guy who's definitely struggled and maybe hasn't like figured out exactly what kind of pitcher he is or how to pitch to his best potential just yet, going to Coors is a nightmare place for him too. It was a really, really bad combination of what happened, and it's a shame because, like we said, the Mets offense was clicking. We put up 10 runs today, and it stinks to lose a game when you win 10 runs. And I don't think you guys want to hear it, but that's also just like Coors Field a little bit too. It's what happens. It's chaos games.
Yeah, it would have just the only thing is with the chaos games, it would have felt really good to come out on top of one of the chaos games. Like the fact that you won the one easy and you lost both 50-50s, like that's just not the recipe, and that's really annoying now looking back at it, especially. We got the 2 horses, and I think we scored 22 runs in 3 games of the series. Like, yeah, really, you got the bats going. You turn the lineup over. We got really big performances from, again, we said it before, Tommy Pham had a marquee game. Best game as a Met. Like a few times we've said this now. The guy had 3 balls in play over 103.5 miles an hour, and his 1 out came with a 91. It was his triple. It was a home run, 22 out of 30 ballparks in the league. He was smashing the ball all over the field, and it was like, all right. Like, we're getting something here. And that was a huge part of that rally. That was, remind me, the 4th inning where the lineup flipped, the lineup spun, and you got back to the top where newly minted 2-hitter Francisco Alvarez was able to cash it in with a big-time home run from, I almost made the big-time Tommy joke. I'm getting confused here. But, yeah, it's just frustrating when you go back on the other side and you're like, all right, you can't hold him down.
Yeah, and I mean, thank goodness for the off day because I do not want the Mets coming back from Coors and just jumping right into a game. So Monday, no game. Of course, we know we start the series against the Phillies on Tuesday, which is an important one. I know the Phillies aren't playing particularly good baseball right now, and they've been struggling a little bit, as have the Mets. We know both teams have not been playing to their top potential, but it is important to come out and play the Phillies well, get some wins against them, especially at home. Again, this team is by no means bad. We haven't really hit our stride yet. We thought we did a little bit with that Rays and Guardians, cooled off a little bit with the Cubs and the Rockies. Maybe the Phillies bringing a rival into town. There's a little bit of bad blood there, of course, with Jose Alvarado. He's a rat. Maybe that sparks something for us.
He's not healthy, I believe.
Yeah, I know, but he's still he's a Philly.
Oh, he's not still around. Yeah.
Yeah, he'll be at the park, I'm sure.
I think the most intriguing part of this series is that this is the first time we've played the Phillies in 2023, and it'll be on May 30th. Mark, I want you to guess, because we talked about this a lot on the show last year about how strange the schedule was. I love to take shots at schedules, you guys know. How many times do you think we had played the Phillies in 2022 by May 30th? How many games do you think we played against them?
I'm going to go 12.
12 is exactly correct. And
bang.
As a caveat, 1 was rained out, so 13 were scheduled. So 13 games in 2022 were scheduled between the Mets and the Phillies before May 30th. And we have played 0 up until that point, 2023.
Those 13 games would also be more than we would even play them this season, right? You only play your division opponent 12, I think.
Yep, sure is. So it's another victory for the Marlins schedule, but it's so bizarre that we're going to be basically in June. We're going to pass Memorial Day without playing one of our premier divisional rivals.
Before we get going into the series preview, let's just go ahead and do the estimate. As we know, I guess 12, James guessed 10. I won that one, so I take a lead, back up 1. Johnny Stats, of course, can't be here. He's got a barbecue or something more important than the Mets'd podcast, it seems.
Didn't tell us, yeah.
Didn't tell us. We'll take it over here. He didn't give us a great one, so we came up with our own. And James, what was it?
How many total bases by the kids in this 3-game series with the Phillies? We saw Saturday, all 3 were in the lineup. Vientos played 2 games in a row, and I think Buck had actually said on Friday night that he would play 3 games in a row. So that is, if everything goes according to plan, he will again be in the lineup on Tuesday evening. So the question is, and I'm going to pull up the pitching matchups just to tell you and tell the people in the moment.
Yeah, it's important because we know that lefty-righty is going to be important, it seems.
Yes, because there is a lefty on the mound Tuesday, Ranger Suarez, who came back about a week and a half ago for the Phillies against Kodai Senga, 7-10. Wednesday, Carlos Carrasco versus Aaron Nola, ace-off, Wednesday evening. And then Thursday matinee, 1 o'clock, Scherzer versus old friend Taijuan Walker. So again, one lefty from the Phillies. Yeah.
Okay, let's work this out in my head. I'm trying to think. I don't have paper. I have nothing. This is not my house, so I'm just going to have to say it out loud.
All right, I'll flip and you say it at the same time. We'll count down.
There is a marker and a tissue next to me. Should I write it on a marker with a marker and a tissue?
Yeah.
All right, let me grab that. You talk to the people while I go grab that.
Yeah, I'll talk to the people. And otherwise, coming into this Phillies series, just started to do half of the preview now. Again, strange we haven't played them yet, but we're going to get Taijuan Walker again, old friend. He's not exactly having the best year, but you guys know what you get with Walker. He's going to be able to bear down, pitch a good game. We're going to miss old friend Zach Wheeler, thankfully, coming off his best start of the year on Saturday afternoon. Aaron Nola's been hot and cold, but we know he always really shows out when he comes to Citi Field. It's probably his favorite place to pitch. That was that could be a famous thing where Chipper Jones named the kid Shea. Aaron Nola's going to name the kid City. He loves pitching here. You got it? You ready to write?
I'm ready to go. I'm calculating my numbers here.
Yeah, I got to think about it too.
Okay.
It's about how many home runs Francisco Alvarez is going to hit.
Yeah. Ooh. Yeah, I'm going to go here. Wow, this actually has turned out way better than I thought on this napkin. It's a great marker. Shout out yellow Sharpie markers.
Yeah.
It's it's popping. All right, ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1.
Ooh.
I got 15.
I went 12.
You want to know what originally I had written? I had 12 written. And then you brought the Francisco Alvarez home runs, and I was like, hey, that guy can hit a couple of those home runs there, and that really skews it. So I wanted to make sure I was higher than you because I don't want to get gypped out if Francisco starts the ball out. We know he can.
And we know he quite literally has been. 5 home runs in 8 games for Francisco Alvarez. Doesn't even include the multi-home run game that was a week and a half ago, and his the Cincinnati one. But I mean, otherwise, this Phillies team is pretty similar to the one you guys knew and loved so much from last April and May. The big difference is, of course, Trey Turner being in town now. Trey Turner is having, by all accounts, an incredibly disappointing season. I'm only saying this because I still 100% believe in his future prospects as a baseball player. When you're as good as Trey Turner for as long as you are, a bad 7 weeks that just happens at the beginning of the season is going to be magnified because it just does look like that. But his chase rate's not so good. He's not lifting the ball as much. He's not getting to as much power. We know he's going to get hot though in Citi Field because we're saying this. There's absolutely no doubt. Yeah, we're gonna jumpstart Trey Turner's entire career, but at least worth noting that this is the first time we're playing the Phillies in what feels like a generation where they actually do have a player at shortstop.
I see a player on their roster that I've legitimately never heard of. Have you heard of Dalton Guthrie?
Nope, never have.
Dalton Guthrie. He's the son of Mark Guthrie, who I believe is no relation to Jeremy. I thought he had a relation to Jeremy, but yeah, son of Mark Guthrie. Dalton Guthrie is an outfielder, third baseman, second baseman. Interesting. I mean, the Phillies have Bryce Harper, who's been phenomenal. I mean, he's still Bryce Harper, still one of the best hitters in all of baseball. Kyle Schwarber does the Kyle Schwarber thing where I walk, I hit home runs, and I strike out. Your boy Edmundo Sosa, I think he's cooled off a little bit, right? If I'm correct.
He's a considerably cooler May, as well as most of the young Phillies who broke out in April. Brandon Marsh, Bryson Stott, they've all had much cooler Mays than Aprils, but they all are still playing at least solid baseball all around. JT Realmuto is still playing well, but probably a quarter of a step back from the JT Realmuto we knew in his prime. Bohm looks like a good player. Your favorite Philly, of course.
Yeah.
Nick Castellanos has rebounded. He's actually hitting 300 right now. He's only has 5. Nick Castellanos.
Oh, okay. I thought you called him Nick Castellanos. I was like, what?
I might skip the back half of the word. It's his Memorial Day over here, but
yeah, we're having fun.
Yeah, he's at least he's been better than he was a year ago. He seems to be sacrificing a lot of. I'm not gonna say what I'm gonna say. I'm not gonna say what I'm gonna say.
No. Good catch. Good catch.
How can I say it?
He's been an extra base hit machine this year. That's a true fact.
All the guy does is hit doubles. It's one of your favorites, but it's a very important game because the Phillies are a team like the Mets right now who are probably not playing up to their standards. We're going to be a team you're directly competing with for either the National League East or a wild card spot when it comes down to it. And we all talk about the diminished importance of the regular season in this modern baseball with the added playoffs and with the less divisional games. This series is not diminished. The 3 games you're playing against the Phillies are going to add a lot of stake to whether you're going to make the postseason or not. And sure, it's your weekday in May. It's a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But these games are going to be vitally important to the Mets' final season standing.
I'm really excited to get at Citi Field for these games. I haven't been, because I wasn't able to go to any of the Braves games at Citi Field. So I haven't been in like a real rival atmosphere in quite some time at Citi Field. So I'm excited to see some of those Philly fans and hopefully be able to talk a little bit of trash to them, you know?
Yeah, the Marlins didn't scratch your itch?
No. The one guy that we knew was a Marlins fan has now switched to a Mets fan. So, I mean, I don't really think they really got much of a fan base out here. In terms of pitching, you mentioned Nola, Taijuan Walker, and who was the other guy? Oh, Ranger Suarez, right?
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about Ranger and all those guys.
Ranger is coming off an injury. He is not a guy who's going to strike you out. He's going to try and just lull you to sleep with sinkers and changeups. And we've seen that as Mets fans go 2 ways. We've seen some games where we've just sent Ranger Suarez right to the moon. We've seen some games where I think one time Ranger Suarez went 8 innings shutout against us. So you kind of just know it's going to be about where the bat of the balls lie. It's going to be about getting a few through at the right times. That's it. And that's going to really set the tone for the series because with Nola going the next day against Carrasco has pitched well, as we know, but that is, I would say, probably that the most significant advantage the Phillies do have in the series is that Wednesday game. So getting off on a good foot Tuesday night against Ranger Suarez, who's coming off against some just hot and cold games. He's not really getting a lot of swings and misses. Just get the barrel on that ball, find a way against him, as he's still even acclimating himself to the season.
Of course, yeah. And Nola had been not as sharp this year, but the last few, it was ever since he went to Coors, right? He actually started to be a lot more sharp. Has been looking like his Aaron Nola self. Contract year, just worth noting with Aaron Nola there. Contract year with the Phillies. Still a very good pitcher. We know that he has had his way with the Mets, to say the least, the last few years. Although I know we beat him and Wheeler all the time last year, but they still pitched well.
No, and Nola does it especially in Citi Fields where he's very good against the Mets. That's where he tied Tom Seaver's consecutive strikeout record. It's where he went toe-to-toe with DeGrom on August night last year, which is one of probably the better games being in the ballpark all of last season. And I think Aaron Nola doesn't get as much respect as he deserves as a guy who is one of the premier pitchers in the entire league, and he has been for a while. Like, for him to be putting up 200 innings going back to 2018, as the offensive environment changes and the baseball changes, Aaron Nola continues to be just incredibly solid, steady, sturdy pitcher who strikes guys out, doesn't allow them any walks, like finds a way to keep the ball in the yard. He's fantastic, and I hope we get to him. Hope all the credit I'm giving him. I hope that means we score 12 runs off him.
Got any credit to give Taijuan Walker, former Met? Okay, let's ask this: Taijuan Walker, cheer or boo at the field? What do you think?
I think he'll for sure get a cheer. I don't know. Taijuan was a fan favorite, I believe.
Oh, Taijuan's the man. Did I ever talk about the story when I saw him at the airport?
I don't believe on the show.
So I was in Dallas. I went to the Taylor Swift concert. Fantastic concert. Shout out to all the Swifties listening to this podcast. I would say there's maybe 2, I think. 6, 2 to 6. Maybe that's
yes, a Swiftie.
Yeah, if you're a Swiftie, tweet us. I know she just had her concert in New Jersey and people were going crazy. But
Aaron Rodgers was going crazy.
Yes, I was coming back. I was at the airport on Sunday, and on my flight going back to New York, I see Taijuan Walker, who's a friend of the podcast, friend of the boys here. I was like, "Hey, Taijuan, like, what's up, man? How you doing?" He's like, "Oh, great." Had a nice conversation with him. Said, "Good luck, even though you're on the Phillies. I'm still a nice guy. I'm not Animal. I hope the best for Taijuan, but I hope they lose." So Taijuan, I'm going to be cheering for Taijuan at least. I don't know about anybody else, but I'll definitely be cheering, even though he signed with the bad guys.
Yeah, but I mean, he got his bag, and you always got to respect the king for getting their bag. But Taijuan just wound up being a really, really good, useful player for the Mets the last 2 years. Gave a lot of good innings, kept us in the game. Yeah. Saw him kind of reinvent himself as a career, too. Like, he'd only thrown, what we always said at the stat, like, during 2021 season. He had thrown, like, 90 innings combined or 50 innings in the last 3 years. So just cool to have seen him, like, get himself to a point where now he's like a pitcher who commands like a $20 million per year salary. And he's been making these changes with his repertoire, like those 2 years with the Mets, like really increasing the use of the split change. And this year it's been his most thrown pitch by a wide margin, 35% of it versus only 23% fastballs. That was something that we were kind of talking about and like hearing him talk about and like watching it happen live in the team. And the Phillies have dove in like head first with it and keep banging that drum.
Yes, similarly with all the guys that ever throw those splitters, you'll know from the start if Taijuan's got it or not. You'll know exactly how the game's going to go. If that splitter's working, he's probably going to pitch well. If he's not, probably going to be able to get to this guy. So keep an eye out early against Taijuan on Thursday, like you said. Otherwise, I don't think we really have anything else. It's Memorial Day. We want to go back and hang out with our friends and family and all that kind of stuff. So I think we're going to leave you there. Guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Mets'd podcast. Follow us on all our social media at Mets'd on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Like we said, if you want to see the YouTube version of anything that we do, go to the New York Mets YouTube channel and subscribe. Listening to us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey. Drop us a rating, drop us a review, download, and subscribe. It really does help us out. Follow James on Twitter at
James_Shiano.
And follow me at Giraffe Neck Mark with a C. Thank you guys for listening and watching, and we'll catch you after the Phillies series, hopefully with a positive episode at Citi Field. Peace out, guys.
Peace out, guys. See you next time.